Voices from the Mausoleum is brought to you by the You Run Podcast Network and yourunpodcast.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum. Welcome to the episode Horror Movie Remakes and Continuations with my co-host, Scott Harding from the You Run Podcast.
Hello. We might disagree this time.
It's okay. It always makes it more interesting. I know I said this in the previous episode, but I didn't even know this was a remake. I thought it was just like some random horror movie idea, right? I was not. It's a remake, apparently. It came up when I was looking for remakes to make a list for. Today we're going to be talking about the 2008 horror movie remake, Mirrors. It is a remake of a 2003 Korean film called Into the Mirror, which is honestly, I would say, quite different. There is a lot of differences in this as opposed to similarities. I'd seen this one. This is another one I own because I like it so much. And I just watched Into the Mirror this past week to get ready to record. So it was a first watch for me. Did you know this was a remake? You did, because you told me what it was a remake for.
Yeah, so Into the Mirror, I went through a kick in the probably mid-2000s of Korean horror. Yeah. I got really into things like The Grudge and The Ring and like all of those. And I went down this rabbit hole of Korean horror and then started watching things like Old Boy and like...
Yeah.
I went down that rabbit hole, and in that journey, I found Into the Mirror, and I quite liked it. It was something I hadn't seen before. It was a very unique movie, but it's not that great. Like
the original?
The original is not that great. And I was teasing you earlier in messages when I said the original was much better. It's really not.
Oh, come on. I was thinking, I'm like, don't get me wrong. Like everyone's entitled to their opinions, no matter how inaccurate they are. But like you and I definitely don't always look for the same things when we watch stuff. So I was like, of course we would differ on this one. Like for some reason I was like, because I thought the original was kind of boring. Like,
yeah, it is. And because I knew how much you liked Mirrors when you're like,
you're such an asshole.
Well, I knew how much you really liked Mirrors, and I was
really like Mirrors.
Well, we'll talk about it, but the original's better, and you were like, hard disagree. I was like chuckling to myself, like,
you're a jerk. Because I was thinking like, it really okay, I will say this about the original. I think that the original storyline, so they both have the similarities of the mall incident.
Yeah.
Right. But in the original, they're reopening it. Whereas in this, it's still an owned property that people vandalize. So they have like security there or whatever. Right. So I like this idea of consumerism and like, we got to reopen this because we need to make the money and kind of the political stuff that goes around that. I think storyline wise, that is a little bit stronger, but it was very dull. Like I found myself just like picking up my phone a lot because I was like, there's not really that much going on, you know?
Yeah, and I think the other thing they do in that is they make the reason for the cop going to the mall a lot better. Like it's someone who he knows who owns the mall who gets him the job there. I found like the reasoning for him being there all made sense, and like the fact that he's trying to get his sister. Like I liked the story, but there's a thing anyone who watches a lot of Korean horror will understand there is a lot of unnecessary story building in Korean horror.
There is
like a lot there where they could, like in an American remake, they'll cover something in 3 sentences. In the Korean version of that movie, that is 25 minutes.
It's like a third of the movie. Yeah, because we get our story with Kiefer Sutherland's character, which I just love him anyway, but we get his story very quickly. We get the police officer that shot and died, why he's not working in police work anymore. He's estranged with his wife, doesn't get to see his kid that often. His sister, like we get all of that in the first like 15 minutes of the movie. Like it's a very tight storyline so that then we can move on to the crazy shit that happens at the mall. Right. So, and I appreciate that because I do prefer quicker moving things.
Yeah,
Um,
I also like that he's a recovering alcoholic is
yes.
in this movie,
Yes.
and when things start to go wrong, he's on very strong suppressants for his
Yeah.
urge to drink, and he
Yeah.
put it down to being a side effect of the drug, which I
Yeah.
think is a really good thing to do. Like it
Yep.
works. One thing I am going to raise attention to: this has got an 18% score on Rotten Tomatoes, and Rotten Tomato critics do not know an asshole from their elbow.
Do you say 18? Like 1-8?
1.8
You're
critic
shitting
score.
me. That's really low. You know what though? Honestly, the critics are not kind to horror movies in general. But that seems like insanely low.
It's scandalous. So I looked when I
It's
look whenever we do an episode, I look to see what
yeah.
it's rated and just get an idea if people agree with me. I do it a lot because I tend to upset people. I want to get I want to have an idea where the rest of the world sits
If you're in
before
the
I then do.
minority or
Yeah, but like when
yeah.
I saw 18%, I was like, no, that's ridiculous. The audience score's much higher. But
Yeah.
then when I went and read some of the critics' reviews, I was like, you guys just say shit just to get people to go, oh, right, okay, yeah, I hate this movie. Like they were saying things like, it's unoriginal. It's a fucking remake. Yes, it's unoriginal. It's a remake of another movie, you idiots. And like, what is some of the other comments in there? Um, the whole thing with the mirrors just put me off. The movie's called
The movie
Mirrors.
is called Mirrors. What the
I was so angry. I
what?
read like 5 reviews and I was like, "Fuck you guys! I hate you both."
So because okay, here's the thing, and you probably could have predicted this was inevitably going to come up, but you know that like my intro to horror, my like everything is Poltergeist. Like that's where I got my start. You know, I'm very connected to Poltergeist, and so my first movie that did the mirror thing is Poltergeist 3,
Yeah,
where and those scenes. So, okay, without going down a deep rabbit hole, there is a lot of myth and lore around mirrors. So, if
right.
you know a lot of that, like you shouldn't show a baby their reflection in the first year of their life. Like there's a lot to unpack with it, and it already makes the concept of mirrors really unsettling. So when they're used in horror movies, it almost always gets my attention. So for there to be an entire movie around it, like I just say like when comparing it to the original, we get the first kill is very different. Well, technically the style of death is the same, but the situations are different. You've got the girl who's like stealing something, and then she randomly has a pizza cutter. Like
Yeah.
where the hell did that even come from? But the other guy, I liked the manic guy that comes through and all the lockers. God, that was so good. I loved it. The lockers all open. There's all the mirrors on the lockers looking at him, and there's one that's broken. And so that's where he does that opening scene. To me, is miles stronger than this other one in the
Yeah.
original,
Uh,
because like
and him
mirrors.
apologizing to the mirror, like saying sorry and
I'm
trying to
so
put the
sorry.
piece back
You're
in.
like, what is happening? Like it pulls you into the concept like right away. And mirrors, reflective surfaces, because this plays with that, with the concept of reflective surfaces versus just actual mirrors, are literally everywhere that we go. And it just gives you this very like claustrophobic feeling of like you can't get away from it. And I feel like the opening for this one did better setting that feeling up and that tone
Yeah.
than the original. Because the original, like the pizza cutter, I'm telling you, Scott, really threw me. I was like, did she just like have that in her pocket? Like, what is she doing?
It was very much. It was like, oh, and then she sort of goes, "Mamma mia!" So where did that
So
come from?
strange.
I like play with mirrors a lot. So
Yeah.
there's a summoning technique when you're summoning demons or whatever, which is called scrying, which is where you sit not looking at a mirror, but with a mirror sort of to the side of you, and you use a candle, and it's a way of communicating or allegedly communicating with the dead. That's something that I've taken heavy inspiration for my next movie, but that's something we'll
Oh,
talk
I
about
love that.
another time.
Yeah.
But mirrors are something that play into horror very well. I think one of the best ever mirror plays is in The Craft, when Sarah steps out of the mirror. She holds Nancy's shoulder and steps out of the mirror.
That was
That
good.
is, it's
Yes.
things like that that play into this very, very well. The people who
Yes.
made this have taken elements that have been used before when people play
Mhm.
with mirrors and incorporated it all into this movie. And
It's
my favorite bit is when Kiefer Sutherland he spots the handprint on the mirror and he tries to rub it away. Like he's like, and then he's like, why is it not coming off? And then as he shines his torch up and he can see handprint and he realizes
everywhere.
that the handprints are on the other, like that moment is like, oh wow, there's a whole world behind
This
that
is
mirror.
not, yeah, there, and that's the thing with mirror lore too, is that it's very dimensional, like very, like, I mean, you talk about, like you were just talking about with summoning stuff, Bloody Mary, Candyman, like there's a ton of stuff. But I think the other thing that I really liked about this is the use of the water. So one of my favorite scenes is when his old house where his wife and his son live, when it
Yeah.
starts to fill up that was
floor.
like, what do you do? Like, because some of the other scenes, it's like very typical stuff. Like when his sister's getting ready to get into the bath, and then her, she moves and her reflection doesn't. That will never not get me. That always unsettles me, because every time I, like, if you look in a mirror for too long, you really will start to be like, if I move and this doesn't, I will lose my fucking mind. And so, like, but the use of water, I thought that particular scene, I was literally like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, what do you do? Like, and of course there's adding a kid in peril, right? Which is automatically like something you worry about, because, but I loved the use of that too. I thought that was just really, really smart.
Yeah, and I like the fact that Kiefer Sutherland's character's kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, and that plays into everything better because
Mm-hmm.
he has no one to go and tell. He has no one who can help
On
him.
his own.
He's living on his sister's sofa. Like he can go to his sister, and when he does, that goes horrifically wrong. Like I like the fact that he's very on his own, and you see the struggle where he's like, I need to deal with this myself. Like that, it's a really good. And Kiefer Sutherland's amazing. Like he's so like
Yeah.
Kiefer Sutherland's throwaway performances are better than 99% of actors when they are giving it their all.
Totally agree. Yeah, he is really great. And I agree about the isolation. I hadn't really thought about that, but it makes the not really having any other options, it makes that more realistic, because then because you're given the story that like he's on his own. Like, and like you said, I mean, obviously the scenes with the sister and stuff, but it's like, yeah, he just has to figure it out. And then like he's already trying, well, he's trying. He's not putting in quite the effort he needs to, but he doesn't want to lose his family. Like he doesn't want, to lose his wife. He wants to be able to be like they were. He's not really doing what he needs to do to get there. But then when you add in the elements, like his switch over from, if this is just affecting me to like, this is affecting my family, felt very natural. And he carried that transition over really well.
Yeah, and I think this applies to most people. If something is affecting you, regardless of what it is, whether it's paranormal or whether it's something in the real world, and it's only affecting you, you can deal with that and just plod on with life, and you can kind of ignore it sometimes. Sometimes you have to deal with something, and
Yeah.
that's fine. But as soon as something starts affecting your partner or your child, that then shifts your focus like, right, I have to deal with this problem now. This problem isn't
It's
something that
different.
can be, yeah, I can't live with this anymore. I need to make it go away.
Yeah.
And he does that really well. And the peril they put the poor kid through in this is awful. And the mum as well. Like the bits they go through is just like, oh man. Like especially towards the end, like the mum like
Yeah.
drowning, like, oh, just like that's the worst. Like
Like they
they let,
hadn't been through enough. Now it's like next level. Like,
yeah, and
yeah.
like like drowning is the worst thing. Like that's the worst thing I could think of. And when the first time I watched Mirrors, I wasn't expecting to be in like that Jaws open water kind of fear level. Like
Oh, right. Yeah.
it is
No,
very
of
much
course
in this.
not. Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
very much a theme in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like, so there's also stuff that happens in mirrors that are like play on things that aren't really there. So like the dressing room scene where he hears the noise and or the crying and he tries to go see, and there's that like burnt up body. Like there's things like that too, kind of playing into like the history of the place and what happened to it. Also, I have to say the set designs, like the are so good.
Amazing.
Like they just like they look just really really good. And so but when he's kind of going through, it's very dark. There's not a lot of there's you can see things but you can't always tell exactly what you're looking at. So it kind of builds into scenes like that in particular where he finds that woman burnt up and unlike he can see it in the reflection or whatever. Like all of that stuff was just played into it more of like all these other, like there's just so many elements that they put into this that it's not just mirrors, right? Like there's other things that play into it. And the use of mirrors is really unique because it's never just the same thing over and over and over again. You get all kinds of different angles, multiple types of mirrors. You get the water surfaces, you get the closet mirror, the locker mirrors. Like it's a very versatile, like they use it in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and even down to like the most basic of scares. So the most basic of scares in this is the first time he sees something in the mirror, he looks in the mirror and he sees the door move.
Oh, yeah.
Like that is brilliant, but it's brilliant because of how Keith Sutherland plays it. So he sees it, he turns around, it's not moved. And you like they go straight to his face and he has a I don't like that. He's got that kind of face. It's almost like a I'm not cool with that. That's not good. I don't like that at all. And it's a very real reaction. Everything he has in this, all of his, especially early on. I think later on he gets very Jack Bauer superhero level, but very early on he's very much like a normal guy. He's like, did that just happen? Like, let me check the medication I'm on. Oh yeah, it says hallucinations. Right. Okay. I've ticked that off now. That is no longer
I don't
an
have to
issue in my
worry
life.
about it.
Yeah. And I like that. My only issue with this is the collapse at the end onto him.
Oh, mm-hmm.
I think they could have handled that more delicately.
Yeah, I kind of feel, because I just revisited this. I hadn't watched it in a long time, so I wanted to make sure I revisited it. I think the first 2/3 of this are, I think in general, a lot stronger than the final act. Once we start getting into like, like resolution territory, we're like coming up to the end or whatever. I really think that's probably the weakest point storyline wise for me. So yeah, I mean, I think I agree with that.
I think this would have made a great series. A great series. The security guard at the haunted mall. I think this would be a perfect Mike Flanagan series subject.
Yeah, especially with his ability to really just write characters, like because to your point, the reason that this works is because of the character that Kiefer Sutherland brings to life. I think without that, I don't think this is as strong. I think it would become more of just like, just like a silly horror movie. Like, I don't think it would be as serious in tone, but like, I don't know, like believable maybe. Like I feel like that's who he plays as the character, right, is definitely what makes the rest of it work. And Mike Flanagan's in my opinion, one of his biggest strengths is characters, from their monologues to their individual dialogue scenes. Like those are the things that make what he does so impactful that you can't forget them or stop thinking about them. I'm inclined to agree with that. I would love to see something like that done.
Yeah, Mike Flanagan won't be doing that for any time in the near future, though, as he's fixing The Exorcist after Gordon Green destroyed it.
And he's doing what they should have done, something different.
Yeah.
Wasn't this like manifested by like horror fans?
Yeah, I think you and me spoke about it a long time ago.
A long time ago, and we weren't the only ones. There were people that saw Believer that was like, please give this to Mike Flanagan, like let him, because it did so bad. So then he like what's the other guy's name? David Gordon Green.
Yeah.
When he was like, yeah, I'm out. I'm like, fucking good. And so and then when they announced it, I was like, man, that's like the highest peak of manifestation I've ever seen, because I think that's what the community wanted. What's my plan doing?
Yeah, I saw Mike Flanagan made a comment, a throwaway comment to someone the other day that the only character that's worth keeping is Pazuzu. And you're like, yeah.
I mean, shit. Yeah, I think I know you do too. I really like possession films. Like, or I really like, that style of film, but God, Believer was a mess. Like, and it sucks because there were some little tiny things in there that really could have made it more, but they just focused on the wrong things. So I'll be curious to see. But I think anything character driven, Mike Flanagan would own. Like, and this is very character driven, like very character driven. And like we've said already, I mean, Kiefer Sutherland is like horror royalty. Like he's great.
Do you know who his performance in this is very similar to Ewan McGregor's performance in Doctor Sleep? It's that very reserved character, but he's got another gear when he needs it.
Yeah.
I draw parallels with I watched Doctor Sleep not that long ago, and then I watched Mirrors, and I'm like, shit, it's the same character. It's Danny Torrance.
Yeah. I can see that. Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoy Mirrors. I love the use of mirrors in horror, even when like stick a mirror in a slasher movie and show me the killer in the mirror when the person who's there doesn't see it. Like,
yeah, I think mirrors are terrifying in essence. I actually have a short story in my collection about mirrors, and it's like, I just think that there's just something naturally unsettling about them. And I think this had the potential to be very wacky, right? Like,
yeah,
it could have been, but the way that it was executed was really good. And I feel like a lot of people really talk about this one.
No, I don't think they do. And like, mirrors genuinely are terrifying. And when you realize that what you see in a mirror is generated by your brain, mirrors can do some really crazy stuff that you don't know they can do. So I'm going to give something for you all to do at home. So go and get a A4 piece of paper, go and hold it on your mirror. Now, behind the A4 piece of paper, hold a can of beer or a can of drink or something like that. So the mirror cannot see that because the paper's in the way. Then bring your head round to the side and you'll be able to see the can of beer.
I've seen things like this before. I don't like that.
It's really creepy, but it's where your brain like reflects the angles.
You
have a moment where you go, but I shouldn't be able to see that, but I don't understand. But if you want to be genuinely freaked out, go and do that. It's a really funny, creepy thing to do.
There's another one too. I don't remember the rules, but it's like, it has to do with how long you stare at the same place in a mirror. Like, if you do it for long enough, you'll start to see things that aren't actually there, because your brain doesn't understand like what you're doing. Basically, it has to do with like the way that you hyperfixate. It's kind of like those spinny things where you look at them for a long time, and then when they stop, you can still see them. That kind of stuff. Yeah. It's very weird. Mirrors are naturally scary, so totally agree.
Yeah. I really enjoy this movie, and I'm disgusted how badly bashed this is in the community. It really doesn't deserve it.
I don't think it deserves that. What do you rate this one?
This is an 8 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I'm the same. 8 out of 10. I really like it. I was telling Tasha, can't remember if she's seen it or not. And I was telling her, I was like, you really should watch it. Like, it really is one that I wouldn't tell somebody to miss. Like, if you've never seen it, please watch it. Like, It's really good. And if you're watching this and you haven't seen it, I don't think we ruined very much at all. Like we kind of skipped around the ending a little bit other than the one mention, but otherwise I don't think it's not ruined from an experience standpoint. I think it's just such a good movie. I liked it just as much on a rewatch as I did the first time I saw it.
Yeah, I did as well. And you say about us not spoiling it. I think we're getting very good now at deliberately avoiding major plot.
Specific plot points.
Yeah, like the specific plot point at the end of this, if we told you that, the whole movie is ruined.
The whole movie is ruined. I also have gotten substantially better over the years at pulling back into what we were talking about.
You have, because we're on like almost like a tight 30 minutes now, and
we're doing so good.
Yeah, like I've recorded with you before. Like you've come on our show, and the episodes run like 2 hours 10.
The one I will always be the most impressed with is the Silent Hill one.
That was like boom, boom, boom. Thanks, God.
You had it though. You were like, you had it like you knew, like you were like, okay, let's stay here. Because I literally could talk about that movie for probably hours. Like I love it so much. So yeah, no, I think we're getting pretty. Practice makes perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, let us know in the comment how good we've got. In the comments, how good we've got.
Please tell us how great we are. Yeah, please. Also check out the merch link while you're there. We have a new logo for Remakes, and I think it turned out really good. And I want to see people get it.
Yeah, go buy a t-shirt. Don't be tight.
Yeah. Or at least the sticker. Stickers are good. I'll accept stickers. Stickers are good. But cool. Well, we don't know what we're doing next. We always decide later. But if you haven't seen the other episode of Remakes, please go visit the playlist. We have covered a bunch. We've been doing this show for over a year now. So
really?
highly, I think so, right?
Wow. Yeah, it is.
It has to be, because last October we did Halloween the October before last. So
yeah. Wow.
Oh my God, that means we're coming up. No way. We're coming up on 2 years? I don't know.
2 years.
I can't remember. Is it?
It's a long time. Yeah, there's lots of episodes there.
Wow. We took a small break, but other than that, but yeah, so lots of stuff to go look at. Lots of controversy too. So please go watch the other episodes. But anyway, I think that's all we have for this episode of Horror Movie Remakes. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Hope you have a good rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend. And we'll see you in the next one.